All right, so a lot of people and professionals get so sucked up with their work that they just totally forget about being healthy. I think we're fortunate because we live here in Miami, and physical fitness is such an important part of the environment here. The weather is always nice.
And the environment allows it.
And people are always outside, so you have an opportunity really to continue to try to stay healthy. And I think like some maybe European cities, it's not all about work in Miami. You're not asked to work until midnight like you are in New York City, so you can find some personal time for fitness. But still, a lot of people as they get older, they start to fall off and forget about the importance of keeping themselves healthy. For me, and I know for you, it is impossible to operate in a professional environment if I'm not doing something physical on the side. It's part of my psychology. It's a psychological. It is like my psychologist in a lot of ways, and without it, I don't know how I would operate.
Well, of course, there's a very famous, Roman saying in Latin, and I'm going to butcher it in Latin, but sound body, sound mind. And when that goes out of focus and people get too caught up, and I think it's getting worse now with remote work because the boundaries start to get blurred, and I think a lot of times it's even more difficult for people to carve out time to do exercise. Maybe, to do meditation, whatever they do. But I think let's just talk about exercise. And I think mental health and wellness has become a very hot topic right now. And that's extremely important. But I think it all starts with just doing basic exercise and having a routine. Well, it has to be a routine.
What's funny is, I know you've said this to me before, like I'll come into the office and you'll immediately know that I did not go running or work out that morning because I just am not the same person.
Of course.
My attitude is worse. I don't feel as awake. I don't feel as motivated. And it's written all over my face because it's become such an integral part of my life for the past 25 years that if I don't do it, then my mental health and my mental acuity suffers. It's not just physical. It becomes something about the way that I'm operating within the world mentally.
But where do you think that comes from? People who have deeply ingrained exercise routines, where does that come from? Is that something that you adopt as a kid? Is that something you're taught as a kid, you're exposed to?
Not me.
It's interesting.
My parents were, when I was a kid, my parents were smokers, and they weren't particularly physically active. They're actually more active now in their 70s than they were when they were in their 30s. So I don't think that has anything to do with a family environment for me. I always worked out in high school, but it was more, for wanting to get like big and strong as a guy, and like when I was 16.
But that's okay. Vanity should play a role in exercise, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I think wanting to improve or maintain your physical appearance, there's nothing wrong with that inherently. I think that can be a strong motivator for a lot of people.
I think at this point it's purely habitual. There are certain things in life that are habitual, like you have routines that you do throughout the day, and for me, getting up in the morning, and it's typically running, but I've tried to mix up weight training as I've gotten older because I think it's important for, as you get older, to lift weights more than just like break down muscle running. But it's a routine now. Like this morning I woke up, I was tired, and it would be very easy for me just to roll over in bed and say I'm not going to do it today. But it's just not part of who I am. I had to get out there and work out.
The routine part of it, I think, is so critical. I think without a routine, it's very easy to say, screw it, I'm not going to work out today. Because it's called work out. Emphasis on the work part. And it takes a lot of effort to do it. I mean, sure, it can be enjoyable sometimes, not all the time. And the only way to incorporate that in a sustainable way is to make it into a routine. And I guess that gets into psychology. And I'm far from any sort of expert on the routine. How do you form a routine, and how do you have a routine that actually sticks? And I think that's like a new wave of fitness right now. People, the more psychological aspect of it, trying to help people form habits and form routines. I guess a habit and a routine are actually different things.
It's very difficult to develop these things later in life. I run half marathons. I've never run a full, but I run the half just about every year. And when you look at the results either of the half marathon or a 5K or even a full marathon, you have sort of your elite runners that span different age groups. Then you got the guys who are like men and women who are like 16 to 25, who are just young and they could just naturally just run and do whatever. But the real competitive folks are over 40. And there's a reason for that, is if you are still running and active over 40, it's likely habitual, likely part of your routine, and you're good at it. You've been doing it for years. So the training makes you better and better as you get older and older. If you look at the run time of the winners in the 40 to 55 range of these races, I guarantee you that they're either at or better than the people who are 25. It's just because they've been doing it for so long, it's become part of their life. And I think that if you're not starting this and making it part of your life at a young age, it's very, very difficult to make it part of your life as you get into your 40s. Because think about it. We have kids. When I was young, before I had kids, I could just work out at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever. I could just pick a random time. Now, the only real time that I have to exercise is between 5:30 and 7:30 in the morning. After that, the whole rest of the day is either getting my kids to school or camp, going to work. Then when I get home, I want to spend time with them, get them ready for bed. Like the night, forget it, is over. So you have to build that time in the morning. So if you're not starting that as a young person, it's very difficult to do it older. I agree with
you. So there's a couple things in there that I've been thinking about. First is teaching your kids that exercise is extremely important. Not just sports, but exercise and fitness, and having them exposed to that. So I'll go out of my way with my wife to make sure that the kids understand, like, we're doing exercise. This is just part of life. You have to do exercise. It's important, and you have to stick with it. So I think, like anything, good habits or bad habits, when your kids see them, they incorporate that into what they think is normal. So I think anyone who's raising kids right now should take some time out to think about how they're going to expose their kids to exercise and ingrain that in them, that having an exercise routine is fundamental and it's indispensable. I also think that what you said is equally important, making time. I think that the number one excuse probably for not working out enough or not doing any exercise at all is I don't have enough time. I remember my dad always telling me and telling other people, is like, there's no, you can make time to do exercise, period. You can always make time to do that. You have to make time to do that.
And if you don't, the obvious consequences are pretty significant, because if you think about the way that people's lifestyles are, it's very difficult to maintain. Like, you can try your best to eat vegetables and just maintain a healthy diet. That's great. If you can get out there and be physical, that's going to be the counterbalance to alcohol, to eating food that's not good for you, and just keeping your blood pumping. But what I've found is, and you see this a lot of times, is that successful people are oftentimes the ones who are exercising the most.
There's a correlation between physical fitness and many things.
I think it's because it's hard to maintain the focus of a healthy lifestyle, just like it's hard to maintain the focus of running a business or doing something on the professional side. It's also that people who reach a certain level in their professional life are likely somewhat obsessive compulsive in the way that they do their
disciplined
and extremely disciplined, and that's what that goes into all aspects of their life, whether it's going to be from a fitness standpoint, from a work standpoint, from a family standpoint. So there is certainly like a correlation between the way that you act with physical fitness and the way that you might conduct yourself from a work way. What I wonder is if it's the reverse. If you start young in a disciplined way and teaching yourself how to be physically fit, does that lead to success from a business standpoint because you're teaching yourself that level of discipline and hard work?
I think it all goes hand in hand. It's a matter of degree. If you're looking at, the most successful business people on earth, sure, I think that there's a high correlation between that and extreme physical fitness, right? So I think they can be extreme at both levels. And some people take it too far, by the way. But I think that what we started talking about this, I guess we both took it for granted. Since we've known one another, we both have exercised, every day. And it's just my lifestyle, your lifestyle. We never really spoke about it much.
Right.
We've started to speak about it more, unfortunately, as we've gotten a little bit older. And I think that when you look around and you start to see some of your peers and some of your friends, in particular, a lot of them who live in different cities, and you start to see that, in colder climates, places where they're really stuck in their basements for months at a time, it certainly makes it more challenging. We have it easy here because, year round we can go for a run outside.
Oh, my biggest
It's not,
complaint is that today it was hot, and
Yeah, it was brutal this
so it was
morning.
hard to run this morning because it was hot.
I was out this morning, I could barely breathe.
But I'd much rather do that than run when it's 20 degrees below zero in
Well,
like
you
Minnesota. You know, so we're very fortunate that we live in an environment like that. But it is, if I could impart upon anybody young, when I say young, let's call it like under 35, that has not made that part of their routine, just getting up every day and finding 15 to 30 minutes to exercise. I truly believe that making that part of your daily routine leads to success in all other aspects of your life. Because the more, as you get older, the more sedentary you become, the more you suffer from health problems, the more you'll gain weight and you'll feel out of shape.
All naturally,
That will lead to people feeling depressed. It will lead to people feeling tired, unable to be productive. So by continuing to infuse that sort of extra energy in from exercise, you're able to beat down some of those factors that are very difficult to control as you get older, and you can fight off age.
And this is one thing that you can control, is just go for a walk in the morning. If there's one thing you can control, that, and by controlling that, it can influence a lot of things that you don't necessarily have direct control over. But I'll tell you one thing that I have found ironic as I observe over the last years. A lot of times, and this is something I hope our audience listens to, a lot of the people who I see who are the most sedentary going into their mid-30s when things start to catch up with you are the people who never had to work out for vanity purposes, right? So people who were naturally thin, people who were naturally muscular, whatever it is, they have great genetics. When they're younger, they don't have to pay attention to their diet. Then as they age, things start to catch up with them, and they don't have any routine. They've never worked out in their entire life. They don't do exercise. A lot of times you see that more acutely. And seeing that over the years has made me think about it more, just to redouble my efforts to not only maintain my habits, but really try to reinforce that in my kids.
Well, with the kids, I think that's also really an important factor. Because like you said before, you were asking about growing up, I did not have somebody that was teaching me physical fitness necessarily.
I think it's a generational thing also.
It could be. When we were younger, parents smoked. People don't smoke anymore. There's all that stuff. And it's also, I think that, at least in this environment in Miami, being 45 years old like I am does not mean that you're old. People are still going out all the time. They're very social. So there's a lot of reasons why you want to keep yourself feeling youthful and feeling young, and that's part of the environment. But I have my son who's 6 years old running 5Ks with me because he wants to, because I want to teach him to be physical. I have my daughters out there playing soccer and playing basketball on a regular basis just to try to make sure that they're constantly doing something physical. Because at today's age, especially with younger people and the distractions of gaming or technology or things that will keep you from going outside, there's even more of a concern that if you don't instill that in people at a young age, the problems are going to get much, much worse.
Yeah, that's becoming, I think, even a public health crisis at this point. That's a whole other conversation.
But that's the way to counter that, is to really bring the young people in with you. I know that your boys are a lot of times sitting in the gym with you while you're working out, so they may not be doing it, but they're watching
I've always exposed them to that since they were infants.
And my kids
for me, it's been very important.
My kids know in the morning, if I'm not in the house when they wake up, it's because I'm out running or working out.
To them, as they grow up, it's unthinkable not to be doing exercise daily.
Of course.
It's unthinkable.
So that'll conclude this quick episode of Trials and Tribulations. Get out there, run, work out, walk, do something physical, because not only will it make you feel better physically, but it will add a lot to your professional life, because you won't feel tired. You won't feel run down. It will really do a lot to enhance your life in general.
You won't feel as tired.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. This episode was sponsored by LevelEsq. LevelEsq is designed by plaintiff lawyers for plaintiff lawyers. We empower our colleagues by providing the capital and risk management tools necessary to defeat big corporations and insurance companies.